So I guess we want to go back and start at the beginning of,
Okay.
and first I want to know, what is the proper designation? Is it the 800, 808 roads?
Oh, great question. We call it the 800-808 route, and
Okay.
basically it's the 808 road as you leave Forest Road 23, which is a public road.
Okay.
So, right? As you leave that, it's the 808 route until it intersects with the 800. So the 800 actually comes from mm, our Camp 1, where the old Sawmill 5 was.
Hmm.
From that, from the from basically the Shelton Matlock Road there uh, comes out to a point, and then it continues west. That's the 800 route,
Okay.
west through our tree farm. The 808 then intersects with it. It's another main road that connects the eastern portion of that block uh, and connects up to the Skokomish, both north and south forks.
Okay. So when did this become the evacuation route?
That is a great question. These are all great questions.
Hmm.
So, Green Diamond, so these are private logging roads, and first Simpson and then Green Diamond. And as you know, uh, Green Diamond is owned by the same private shareholders as Simpson. We just separated the company, created a new company in 2002, actually. And historically, um, most logging roads were open, no gates on them, etc. It wasn't until really the into the 80s, as population grew, that Green Diamond, or excuse me, Simpson and others, many other landowners started gating roads because there was garbage dumping. There was a lot of mischief on the roads where folks are, pulling Brodies on the roads and messing up the roads so that we have to fix them before we can operate on them. Those kinds of things were
Hmm.
happening. So I would say it was we actually put gates on those roads in the 90s, um, but that 800 to 808 route was typically open year round.
Okay.
And part of that is because um, it does get a fair amount. It's a main route. It's one of our main routes through our tree farm, and it does get a fair amount of forest management traffic. So for anyone, it's easier not to shut the gate, right?
Right.
And then it was basically when the Vance Creek Bridge became a popular sensation, and it's so dangerous up there that we started being extremely careful about keeping those gates closed. So we do close the gates, and they are open when we're operating. They're closed the rest of the time.
Okay.
Um, that's typically our mode of operation now. The route, for your information, is actually 9.5 miles long. So it comes up out of the valley on Forest Road 23. You hang a left-hand turn onto the 808 route, and then you snake through the tree farm. Some of it is steep. There are no guardrails, no um, warning signs, and it's maybe a lane and a half wide.
Mm-hmm.
And then it flattens out at the other end, at the 800 end, but it continues to snake through the tree farm in a different direction, and then you pop out at the Dayton Matlock Road. So it's a long route, and you can imagine that in inclement weather, in the dark, etc., trees down, all kinds of hazards. It's
Right. Right.
would not be anyone's preferred route to or from. So over the years, it has become not an evacuation route at all, but an alternative route. And in more recent years, the last several years, we've had an agreement with the county where they opened the gates at the when the floods came, and then they would close the gates when they were able to open the Skokomish Valley Road.
Okay.
One of the things that you heard in the briefing was that they don't open the Skokomish Valley road for a day or two after the flooding recedes, and that's because they have to inspect the roads, I assume, in before they reopen them. And going back to the point that ours is a logging road, we maintain it, and the county is not inspecting those roads, even though the public is using them.
Okay.
So we back in the day, had a very simple little road use agreement. We spent about 5 years ago, started the process of trying to update that road use agreement with the county. And after several starts and stops, we worked very intensively and used a lot of resources, both at Green Diamond and at the county, trying to come to an agreement. And the big outstanding issues were liability, excuse me, and maintenance of the road. And we could not accept liability for public use of that road, and the county decided they would not accept liability either. Again, this is public use of a private road.
Mm-hmm.
So then last winter, we had a slide on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Those kinds of things do happen. And we closed the road for several days, and we made some repairs on it. Our folks know where to go, but we can't guarantee that with the public. And you heard Chief Wiellander and Ross McDowell mention that and there are lots of other folks who are using that route when it's open. And while the majority of the Valley residents, I think they were characterized as longtime residents and knew the route well. We certainly can't guarantee that, and there are new residents in Mason County everywhere, and I'm sure there are some in the Valley as well. So it was at that point that we realized just how important this liability question was. So even though we were talking about, well, what would be another option to maintain a true evacuation route only? Is that possible? We talked about some of those things with the county, but eventually we came to the conclusion that it would be very difficult to monitor traffic. We couldn't guarantee that it was only used as an evacuation route. And again, we still had that liability issue. Now, I will say that the county commissioners and staff spoke of using emergency powers,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe it was Ross McDowell who said we, the county, would assume all liability at that point.
Right.
That does make a difference.
So I guess the question is, what is the status of the road currently after, the last event, a relatively dry summer? So where's the
Right.
road from the Green Diamond standpoint now? What's the current
The
condition?
road is accessible to for forest management traffic, and folks mentioned, a double standard, but it's the amount of traffic. There's a huge difference in the amount of traffic that we generate versus the amount of traffic that occurs when I believe they said it was somewhere on the order of 100 residents
Mm-hmm.
are traveling back and forth. That also includes commercial traffic that was traveling back and forth on our road. So we're comfortable allowing our folks to use it. Again, they know the route and they know the hazards. We aren't comfortable allowing the public to use it.
Okay. There was some discussion in the briefing about the county either taking over the road or working with Green Diamond to bring it up to county standards. Now, what we obviously are talking about gravel road standards, not paved road standards.
Right.
But is that in the works? Is Green Diamond open to that?
Um, Green Diamond would be open to discussion with the county as long as they can take over the liability and they can handle the maintenance to appropriate standards. When I say appropriate standards, there are differences. There are specific sediment mitigation measures that we take
Mm-hmm.
that we don't necessarily see on county roads. So we would certainly need to talk about that. I heard Loretta Swanson mention that they were going to take a look at that route
Mm-hmm.
today or sometime this week.
Right.
And so again, we're not interested in having the county own that road because it's a major route through our tree farm,
Mm-hmm.
and that just opens up a lot of our tree farm to mischief. But it, as I've said before, if this were used as a true evacuation route, and we could answer those questions about liability and maintenance, we'd be certainly willing to talk. I want to point out, though, that there is an evacuation route. It's the Skokomish Valley Road. And Mr. McDowell, in the briefing, mentioned that if residents sign up for the warning system, the county has the ability to provide that warning
Mm-hmm.
so that people can get out. But that doesn't allow for the back and forth traffic in and out and in and out and in and out as if there were no flood.
So let's put a hypothetical out there
Mm-hmm.
that there's a severe flood in the valley. Skokomish Valley Road is closed, flooded, and not passable. And you're talking about getting everybody out. We're not talking about what commuter traffic is what I would say you're describing the back and
Right,
forth. But
right.
if they were to evacuate everybody in the upper valley, would Green Diamond open the road for that purpose and that purpose only? One time through.
We had that discussion with the county, And again, we have to answer the questions about liability and about maintenance of the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
So more discussions have to be made prior to any winter season.
I will say that there's a certain level of frustration, probably on both parts, because we keep coming up against the same issues, liability and maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't answered those questions. The first I've heard of the idea of using emergency powers, and then the county could accept liability. The first I heard of it was today, or it was in the briefing.
Mm-hmm.
My apologies. And the one person who wasn't in the room or in the Zoom meeting that you recorded was Tim Whitehead from the prosecutor's office. So I assume that the county still needs to answer those questions about liability. Is that truly the case? And certainly that would make a difference in terms of the use of that road. I will also say, though, that I really appreciate Loretta Swanson and the Public Works folks and Mason Conservation District and others who have been working on a long-term solution for this, and raising the Skokomish Valley Road, making those important repairs to it. It's not cheap.
Right.
And I don't remember what the price tag on it is, but it's a big project. But that actually involves county roads. So
Right.
to my mind, that's the permanent solution. And any expense that folks go to, for example, bring the 800-808 route up to county standards somehow, that takes away from the funding that can be used to provide the permanent solution. And it's not mine to say, it's for the county commissioners to make those choices. But I think this really points up the need for some permanent solutions. The Valley residents have been dealing with this for years, and going out the back way has always been, as far as I'm concerned, the Band-Aid approach.
Right. Okay, Patti, I don't think I had anything else to ask you. I think we covered everything. I guess it's more of a wait and see what happens from this point.
Yes. I know that there will be a great deal of frustration on the part of Valley residents, and I feel for those Valley residents. Again, the evacuation route that the county has arranged for is the Skokomish Valley Road, and that means it has to be evacuated before the water gets too high.
Right. Yeah. And I think that was stated by Ross that, you get the warning, you have the choice to leave now or shelter in place, which pretty much is everywhere. And if you get some sort of warning, you either choose to heed that warning and leave, or you choose to stay and deal with whatever happens because of that.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And
that's where we are.
Yeah. And I think, we as county citizens haven't heard a whole lot about this because we've always had another alternative. But this points out just how frustrating it is living in the valley with such frequent flooding.
Right.